Hello, FewCandy here, and welcome back to Few Orleans. And we are in with mods. So let's just kick right off today and talk about what mods we have and what they do before we go in and add some actual details to our city finally. So let's talk about what mods I actually have. And in order to do that, I'm going to bring up my Thunderstorm manager just so that you can see this here. So there are some dependencies which aren't really kind of active mods in themselves, but are needed for some of the mods to work. So like BEP in XPack, Unified Icon Library, Hook UI and GUI, those are all just dependencies. So the other ones we have got Anarchy and Better Bulldozer, which kind of go hand in hand. So Anarchy obviously allows us to place things, exactly like in CS1, when overlapping other things essentially. So trees now, we can place trees really close together if we want to, not within the blue little circle boundary that they have. So we could place them closer to roads, for example, or actually on the sides of roads if we want to choose a different tree to have on our road. So really great mod there. So Better Bulldozer goes hand in hand with this. It allows us to delete things like surfaces or invisible networks. And I think in the background they're working on this to be able to delete them within assets already as well. I think there's some functionality you can do there, but not completely, entirely at the moment. So that's super exciting. Extra landscaping tools gives us the function to actually paint in extra resources where we want to. Super helpful there, and gives us a few more brush options essentially for our landscaping tools. And then the extension to that is the surface extension, which is again linked to extra landscaping tools. This gives us a whole new menu, which I'll go into in a minute, where we can add our own surfaces. Wonderful! And this is something you can do from DevTool, although it's much more simple and much more user-friendly using this mod here. So I'll show you that in a second. Line tool light, of course, we want to place stuff in lines or in circles. We can now do that super easily without having to click the mouse 1,000 times to get bushes in a row. Extended road upgrades gives us the option to change a road to a retaining wall side, key wall side, whatever we want. So thank goodness for that. No more finicky key work whenever that's needed. Really handy mod. Tree controller gives us a whole bunch of options, but the main purposes for me are to be able to place adult trees. So that's a big win there, but there are options to kind of place different seasons of trees and various other things like that, but we're just sort of surface level touching on it really, which is placing in grown trees finally. Water features allows us to add water spawn points and kind of rivers and things like that into our cities a bit more easily, so that's helpful there. Colour adjustments is just that. It allows us to change the saturation and brightness of our actual visuals, so things like winter aren't quite so dull anymore. Legacy Flavour is actually a really underrated mod, I think, but really goes a long way to help. It gets rid of all of that horrible whiteness that we see, and you have options to customise things like the zoning colours and the grid colours and things like that, which is very helpful indeed. And then find stuff, which is pretty new, which just gives us the option to essentially easily find stuff, literally like find it in Cities Skylines 1, so we can find things really nice and easily. So if we come back to the game now, find stuff you'll obviously see here, and you've got options to toggle. You can make things favourite, you can choose different trees from here, roads, etc. To be honest, I'm not using this too much right now, just because I actually tend to find the dev UI thing a little bit easier because I can see more items on one page, which I know sounds strange because I've been waiting to find it for so long. And also there's certain networks and things which I will be using in this episode which I can't seem to get within Find It as well. But I'm still trying to find my way around this. There are different views that you can use if you want to make things a little bit better. But the other thing that I find a little bit frustrating versus Cities Skylines 1 is none of the props have any pictures. So it's just a case of like knowing what you're searching for ultimately, or scrolling through the whole list if you have patience for that. This is this surfaces menu. So this is so good. Like honestly, it's way better than Surface Painter that we had in Cities Skylines 1. We have so many different options for different type of asphalt, different types of ground cover. Like we've got sand, we've got rocky sand, wet sand, sand surface, oil surface. We can paint in whatever we want here. Really good. Really like this. Really like this a lot. Tiles as well. There's so many different tiles already built into the game. So this just gives us the ability to be able to actually put in those surfaces. And going hand in hand with Anarchy as well means that we can put those over buildings, over paths, wherever we want. Actually overlap surfaces as well if we want to too. So really handy there. A couple of wood surfaces there too. In landscaping, we now see these from the extra landscaping tools. Yeah, great. We can paint in oil, we can paint in farm. We no longer need to be constrained by some of the really odd placements of some of these raw resources on the maps. So yeah, really, really handy there. We also have the water tool, of course, if you want to do things like rivers, streams, lakes, add in various water sources there. And we do also have this, which adds in some decals as well, which mainly seems to be arrows on roads or parking spaces from what I can tell. Again, I haven't really gone through the full list here, but I'm pretty sure that's essentially what it is. Now you will see as well on vegetation, this is tree controller, so we do now have options to add in various different ages of trees. Marvellous! We can also place multiple, so we can place several types of tree at once now. So within this we've got some presets, so wild deciduous for example, it lists the trees which are in that evergreen, and we can also create our own custom presets in here. So we've got a proper forest brush, finally, for our cities. We can also change the age of trees on the actual map now as well, which is pretty cool. So we can click on all of those and they'll change to adults. You see, if we click on them now, it'll change to elderly trees. We could change them to dead trees if we wanted to. And you can also do a mix as well, of course. So if you wanted like a mix of everything, there we go. We've got a little mix of everything in there. Just what a brilliant tool. Such a massive advancement on the forest brush that we had in Cities Skylines 1. Really love this. Really love this. The modders have done some seriously clever stuff. And let's just talk about legacy flavour. So look, if I put on zonings now, let's just actually toggle this off. If I put on zonings now, you'll see this isn't quite so bright. We haven't got all the horrible white squares on there, and that is because I have used legacy flavour to change this. So this has a whole bunch of settings. I'm not going to go into the details of this. There are other creators that have made mod tutorials on this. If you do want to see mod tutorials on anything specific, let me know and I will do my best to learn it properly so I can give you a proper tutorial. But yeah, essentially like the things to be aware of is this use sticky whiteness. This overrides the game horrible whiteness mode. You can also change the cell opacity and the cell border colours and things like that here, which is what I have done to get rid of all of this horrible white. So now when we click on zoning, we're not suddenly getting a massive headache because the entire screen is bright white. So really, really love that. And this other one up here is just like another shortcut to get to find stuff essentially here. Also within options as well, like last time, we do then have some of the mods here. So things like colour adjustments, you can do that from here, adjusting your contrast, your saturation, etc. Find stuff, you can see this here, enable picker shortcut. So expert mode does enable those dangerous objects, which is probably what I'm going to use dev mode for, but there we go. I haven't found the things that I use to be too dangerous. I would say the one things you do want to stay away from are vehicles, anything animated, that sort of thing, people, etc. So tree controller, you can disable tree growth for the entire map except for lumber industry. Yes, yes, yes. So good. And deciduous trees use dead model during winter. I quite like that as well. We might actually use that. We might use that. And you can also change the colour variation set if you want to here as well. I've just kept it on vanilla because why not? And then you've also got the water features. We're not really going to use the water features today, but I've got it just in case we ever want to. So there we go. That was a really long-winded explanation of the mods that I was going to use, but I felt it was necessary now that we're introducing them, just so you could understand and see what I'm actually using and why I'll be using them. So as we go through today's episode, trying to fix this horrendous area, I don't know if I'll come through, honestly, and touch up too many of these other areas. We might do a little bit of a couple of things here and there, potentially on a stream rather than an episode. But everything we build from now on is going to be detailed. And I'm finding it quite hard, honestly, because we've got this already built out area. To come in and now detail this is challenging. Like, I would have built it completely differently if I'd had these mods right from the start. So I think we probably will be doing quite a lot of bulldozing and sorting out and changing it all up, honestly, to get this in. But that's the plan today, is to start doing a bit of detailing on here. And we're not going to be able to do this whole area because I've spent so long talking about the mods that are coming into this series now. So we're just going to be focusing on a couple of smaller things just so I can demonstrate how those mods work, and then we'll go full blown really from next episode. Okay, so we're going to start with this nice simple area here outside the front of the Grand Hotel. So I'm going to grab surfaces to start off with, and I think I'm going to go for the grass checkered lawn for this. We may actually integrate a few little tiles in the middle of it. Yeah, I think we will do that, in fact. So let's actually have a nice central focal point. We've got a tram stop right here, which is not really centred with the front of the hotel, but sort of near enough-ish. So I think we're going to use some nice tiles here, and I'm going to go for the herringbone grey tiles. Now the options with these are similar to everything else, so you've got snap to side of road, for example, which is going to be useful here, so we're going to use that. And we're going to create a big square of our tile in here. So there we go, we've got that grey herringbone tile sat in nicely. And then next to it, I'm going to go back to grass, and I'm going to do some manicured grass in here rather than just leaving it as natural grass. So we're going to follow the edges of the road round exactly like we would do a farming district or anything else like that. And come right up to the edge of our tiles there and add in our manicured lawn, and we'll go ahead and do the same thing the other side. Like this, and then if we click away, obviously those white borders go away. Now if you do a surface and you make a mistake, this is where the extra bulldozer function comes in, which is linked to Anarchy. So in here you'll see you can't bulldoze it away, but you can click on target surfaces now and click on one of these and bulldoze them if you want to. I'm not going to, because we're going to leave these ones in. But there we go, we have now filled in this space with a nice little bit of surface, and the manicured grass is very luminescent green. But I think we can kind of get over that. It looks quite nice, I think. And I think this piece would be manicured right outside the front of a very fancy hotel like this. So now the next thing I do want to do is actually use developer mode. So if you want to use this, all you need to do is go into your Steam library, you click on the game, go to properties, and in the launch options here, you just need to type -developer mode with a capital M, all other letters lowercase, and that will give you access to developer mode. Now within this, the only thing I'm really interested in, there's a lot of functions. You can press tab and you can explore that, but I'm going to press home, and what that does is bring up this add object. So you can see here I was just searching for fences to make sure I knew which one I wanted to use, for example. But here, what we're going to do is we're going to add a fountain to the middle of this. So we're just going to search for fountain. We'll go for large fountain maybe. We've got a few different ones to choose from here, different designs. I'm thinking probably this one makes sense. It's quite grand and nice. We do have to be a little bit careful because the surface here isn't completely flat. But there we go, we can place that now in the middle. If we disable Anarchy, you'll see we can't place it like over the road, for example, but actually if we enable Anarchy, we could literally place it right in the pavement if we wanted to, so maybe a small fountain could be placed right on the pavement. We could decorate this street outside the shops here. Very, very cool indeed, so that's why we want Anarchy. And then around this, I'm also going to search for fence. Now, of course, you can do all of this in Find It, so you don't necessarily need developer mode for this. So if I just close this, also big tip, just click home to close it. Do not click the X button because you won't be able to open it up without quitting your game again. Super annoying. But the one thing I've found with Find It is the menu shuts every time you place something. So let's click on the gazebo. You see the menu shut and I don't really want that. So then I'll have to go click on Find It again to come back into here. So this is why actually I prefer to use developer mode at the moment, just because it's a little bit quicker. Although Find It will protect you from some of those dodgy assets if you're unsure about what those are, or you want that kind of extra help and protection essentially for your game. But let's now go to fence, because there is some fence I'd like to add here. You also do need to watch out that you're going for the fence residential pieces, because that's really what you want here. So we've got like a couple of, well, we've actually got quite a lot of fences built into this game. Again, it's a massive shame they haven't given us access to it and the modders had to do it for us. But I think this is the fence that we're going to use here. And then we're going to use line tool to add this in nicely. So we're just going to click on the line there and we're going to click on fence mode. So exactly like it was in CS1. And then what we can do is just draw in our fence like so, right up against our road. Boom, there we go. We've got our lovely little prop fence in just to line off this garden. So now we can go round and kind of finish off this surface area. I think I'm going to leave the corners blank actually because the fence doesn't sit in too nicely in amongst those. So we'll leave those as entry and exit points into our little garden area. There we go, we have got our fence in now, so that looks all right. The next thing I do want to do is add some benches perhaps. So again, we've got a few different options for this that we can see here. I'm not going to use line tool for this, we're just going to place some in nicely. I'm kind of thinking what's the most appropriate one for outside a plaza. That's a nice one. We've also got tennis benches if you want that. Sports park bench. There's an enclosed one like this. Love this. Campground benches as well, which are a little bit more rustic. So there's a lot. Bench sitting location you don't want to use because that will cause an error. So yeah, I think we're going to go for this one. We're just going to create a couple of little benches on the sides over here. And I have to say it is really good to finally actually get some props in this game and be able to do little areas like this. It's a huge joy to me. And I think it does just go to show that there's massive potential in Cities Skylines 2. Like, I don't think we should write it off just yet. Annoyingly, they are floating, which we can't do much about yet because we don't have a sort of prop snapping tool like we had in Cities Skylines 1 yet, where we can manipulate the heights of different props and things like that. So we have to make do and use our imagination a little bit for that. But there we go. Should we perhaps add a little trash bin in as well? Maybe add a trash bin in either side like this. There we go. We've got like quite a nice little plaza area sitting in the middle of our big kind of open space here. So I think what would be good is to add trees in to this. Now, of course, we're going to go for adult tree here so that we can actually see them. And if we turn on Anarchy as well, you'll see we'll be able to place these actually on the road if we wanted to, wherever we want. So fantastic news there. I'm thinking some big oak trees would be really nice in the middle here. So let's go ahead and place a couple of these in just either side behind those benches. And now you'll see as well with Anarchy on, we'll be able to place these right underneath it. Actually, I think we probably could place these, yeah, there is a collision mesh there somewhere close to it. So now we can actually do this very freely and easily without having to worry about that huge circle around some of these trees. So let's actually go ahead and I think we'll place in another 2 oak trees here just to detail that up. And I mean, that's probably not far off okay for this little area outside the front of our hotel there. So hopefully that's just given you a little flavour of what is now possible just with a few mods. It's not a great massive list of mods, it's just a few that we need to be able to do some areas like this. So yeah, very exciting there. Now the other thing I do want to do is add in a tiny bit of parking next to this hotel. So let's actually go to landscaping tools and I'm going to flatten off this little section next to the hotel. We'll worry about this in a second and smoothing this out. Actually, no, I won't. I'll worry about it now. And I've just completely messed up everything because my brush size is way too big. So let's just make sure our river is maintained here. Like that. So now in here, and this is one thing you can't do with Find It, I think because it's deemed a dangerous item, but I've never had any trouble with it, to be honest. We can go to the invisible road path here, and we can add in some extra functional parking to the side of our hotel. So if we just bring out a straight road like this, you'll see the parking spaces on either side of it. So we can just go like that. And then we have got, this is a functional road, it's connected into this one, we can see that here. And it's got parking spaces on either side that citizens will actually use. Now we can combine that really nicely with our surfaces here to add in a concrete surface area, and I'm unsure actually which one we really want to use for the parking space. I think probably this pavement surface, so let's go for that one. You'll see the cars are already coming in using this invisible road and actually using the parking as well, which is amazing. Absolutely love this. Let's just delete out the trees from the middle of our parking lot here as well. And then yeah, we'll go to surfaces and let's add ourselves in an actual surface for our makeshift car park. Just like this. So very cool. Very cool indeed. Custom car parks, absolutely. And big thanks to Sully and massive shout out to him for his incredible work on Cities Skylines 2. If you haven't checked out his channel, there will be a link in the description below. He's doing insane modded stuff. Like, really go and check him out. Like, his creativity is next to none in this game compared to anyone else. Like, really, really through the roof. And he did a video on this invisible car parking spaces and custom car parks, so I want to shout out and thank him for this awesome idea and discovery. Now the other thing we could do here is start to add in little barriers next to our car park. I mean, I'm conscious that this is right next to a fairly large river, so we kind of don't really want people necessarily going over it. So I'm thinking some kind of concrete barrier, maybe just a simple concrete barrier like this. So yeah, I'm thinking we'll have a couple of these little barriers at the end here. I'm realising that cars are coming down here to turn around because the network actually extends a little bit further. So annoyingly, these actually change colours, but we can delete out the grey one and then maybe come back in and see if we can get another yellow one. It's not going to do it now, is it? There we go. We'll have a yellow one in there, and then we can just come in and remove the extra ones that we don't want, even though Bulldozer is shutting every time I do that. Right, there we go. Now, of course, with these trees here, let's also go in and use a little bit of forest brush. And we're going to do change tree age tool. And we're going to highlight all of these to change their age up to the adults. That's so incredible. Absolutely amazing. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. I think we will also add a little path in here as well, because why not? Let's turn off snapping so we're not snapping into the networks, destroying anything. And let's just add a nice simple path up the slope to connect those two roads together down to the lower tram track here as well. So that'll give quite good access actually up from this street here. So let's just talk about this other side of the road here. Now I'm going to click pause for this. I really don't like some of those buildings that have come in, like just not a fan whatsoever. Now here the zoning actually doesn't come quite as far as I would like it to against this road, so I'm just going to add in a very simple path behind these buildings, and I'm going to get it as close as I possibly can without interfering with those zones, hopefully. There we go. So it sort of lines the back of them. And then it just does give us a little bit of extra space to come in here and zone a bit extra. So what I would like to do here is come in to find it, and we're going to search zones actually for this. We're going to go to commercial, and what we want is North American high. So you can see the ones highlighted, NA, commercial. Now that is low density. I can see that right off the bat. And this is why actually I'm finding find it a little bit more difficult to use, just because the list isn't quite as big as some of the other ones we get. But here we go, we can see the sizes here. We can't see what the zones look like, so we have to be a little bit careful in choosing them. And yeah, because of the annoying coming in and out, I am actually just going to resort back to dev mode for this. Because if we go here, we say North American, commercial, high, what we do get, okay, we've got a couple of signature buildings there, but we do actually get a list of what we want to see here. We can see the different sizes. Now in terms of the zones, actually let's just put that back on. They are 6 deep here, so we could do that. We could of course add in more car parking behind, which I'm kind of tempted to do. So let's actually do that. Let's go to invisible roads. We'll go for the invisible road path 2-way like this. We'll pop that in like so. Then we'll go for the perpendicular one, which has some car parking on. And we're going to draw this across. I don't want it too far, so let's go to there. And we'll go all the way down to this end here as well. So we've got that kind of netted out. Then if we come back into our zones, let's actually just take off these back strips here where we've got that parking, which I think I left 3 spaces there, didn't I? Let's come back in and check. And not this one here. So we've got these zones available to us. Then we can go back to North American high commercial, and we want the ones which are 4 deep. So I'm looking for kind of those to fill in this space here. And actually it's going to be 3 deep, isn't it? Now I can see already from this, there are no commercial high density assets which are 3 deep. So that's really, really unhelpful, in all honesty. So let's go to North American mixed. And we can find some 3 deep buildings in here. Yeah, so this is quite nice actually. Yeah, I quite enjoyed this asset. So that could sit in really nicely here. We do need to change the zones up so that it is mixed in here. So let's go ahead and do that. Pull that out. This one could be here, that one can be there, and then we've still got our car park behind there. So that gives us a nice mixed density asset here. And then we want a 3x3 if we can find it, which I don't think there is any. No, so this might just have to be another 5x3 in here. We could go for a 3x2 and then a quite large one of a 3x5. I don't mind this one too much actually. That just gives us a bit of a nicer shop front here, and then we will still have our invisible network behind. So now we can come into surfaces, and let's grab our pavement surface for this. I think, yeah, we will use the slightly darker one. Then we can start to add it around these buildings, and we can actually overlap these buildings as well because we do have anarchy on. So that's not a problem if that just makes it easier, which it probably does ultimately. We're snapping nicely to the sides of the roads. You can see the cars already coming in. Wonderful. And there we go. We've got our kind of back street car parking area on the back of this commercial. So some of these actual drive-throughs can now start to make a little bit of sense at least. And we can extend it down here, I think, behind this building. And that'll sort of override that lighter concrete surface at the back there. It's slightly broken, but we can tidy that up. That does give us a nice little car park here. Let's just see if we can flatten out the surface a little bit more nicely. Yeah, so those car parking spaces show. That's wonderful. Love that. And now we can actually just come in and throw some detailing down here. So we've got our older trees. So we can start to place some of these in if we want to. Of course, we could use the tree brush for this as well. But now we can actually sort of fill this out and have it actually look appropriate for this little area here. And then we can also throw in some extra props. Now, if you've watched my Cities content, you will know I'm absolutely obsessed with trash piles. So I feel like we need some of those out here as well. And we have got various different rubbish piles, which I love. Like, I just absolutely love this. So let's throw a couple of these down. We've got some wooden piles there, rubble, like various different things. Industrial detailing is going to be a hell of a lot of fun now, honestly. We've also got trash piles like this, so we could add some of these in just to kind of create a bit of a dumping area. We also have trash containers as well, which we can add in here. Of course, would be appropriate behind some of these shops. We might want to also fence off this little yard area, so we could do that. We've also got box piles, so this is quite exciting. So we could use some of these to create some kind of crated areas and things like that. Yeah, it does irritate me that the colour changes constantly, but that is what it is. We've also got a random one as well, so if you're not too keen on having to pick all the time, you could of course do that. But there we go, we've got that. And then we could add some fencing in here potentially too. So yeah, let's come into fence mode. Now, of course, this land is a little bit slopey, so this might look a little bit strange. But we can create a somewhat contained area covering some of this trash from the general public. Obviously, that land isn't ideal here. And this is where if I started over with mods, I would definitely do things a hell of a lot different to make things absolutely perfect. But yeah, there we go. We've got a little kind of backstreet commercial trash/storage area in Cities Skylines II, which is mega exciting for me. Mega exciting indeed. And we've got a nicer looking front as well, so plopping in these buildings is absolutely fine. Of course, they're not historical, so they will level up, although we happen to have chosen a level 5 one there. So these will change over time, but at least we're able to pick the zoning sizes that we want in here more easily, rather than having to go through the painful process of individually zoning, waiting for the building to come in, etc, etc. And we can more easily see the style that we want here. So I'm quite liking how this is looking actually from a density point of view, and very much enjoying that we can now fill in some of these awful empty spaces behind the assets. Okay, so we're going to overuse surfaces here, because if we see here, we've got a very tiny little green gap between these buildings, which honestly just annoys me. So we're going to come in with a bit of surface so we can match the concrete surface. Of course, we've got anarchy on here, so we're able to fill this in completely. But we're just going to go literally all over this entire area. In fact, actually, I think we will take this up to the road corner. We'll come up to here, right up to the edge of the car park. Doesn't matter if we overlap a little bit. Come down to here and across. We'll fill that in with concrete. Now, the thing is, you can see that's actually overlapping the grass here, and it's making it look a little bit strange. Like it's almost see-through. I'm not sure I like that too much. So let's actually come into Bulldozer. We'll click on our surface. We're going to delete that, and we'll do it a little bit differently. So we will be more careful with where we're placing this. We're going to place it up behind here and fill in this gap. I don't really mind about this little grass strip actually at the back, so I think we will incorporate that. Let's get rid of these tiny little grass holes that we're seeing here. So let's overlap these. We'll come back down to this corner. We'll make sure we're preserving the paving here. And then we'll come all the way up around here actually. So we can make some quite interesting shapes with our surfaces. And let's complete that area. And there we go. That's just a million times better in terms of tidying it up and looking at those tiny little things that really do bother me quite a lot. And then here, for example, as well, now that we've got Anarchy on, we can start to come in with some trees and actually make this feel a little bit more appropriate rather than just a plain grass strip. So we wouldn't be able to place these if Anarchy was off. Like, I'll show you, turn Anarchy off, no go, turn Anarchy on. Yes, we can have trees on a little grass line of the side of our building there. It just makes this road feel a little bit nicer as well. So yeah, surfaces are awesome for that. We've got some seriously awkward space. We're going to come on to this, I think, in another episode because I've rambled a lot in this episode. But I just really wanted to introduce you to the mods that I was using and talk about their functionality so that you'll be familiar with those for any future episodes. Now here, natural detailing. Let's have a little talk about that. So in the game, there really aren't very many rocks. Like, okay, it looks like a lot of rocks, but they're all essentially the same, just tiny and slightly different sizes. There's no large rocks in here, which is really, really disappointing. We can do rock random, and then we can start to get little different random rocks in, but you'll see they're all absolutely minuscule. So to place these in over here is just like a massive bath. But we do have this brush mode now. So let's actually reduce this down in size. And we're going to throw in fact, that's too small because you can see they're coming out. But we're going to throw in a whole load of these. We'll turn the strength right up. And we're just going to create a little like nice rocky riverbed along here and make this feel a little bit more purposeful and a little bit more natural. So let's turn up that strength again and we'll throw them in. Like, the trouble is they just go in outside of the brush, which I struggle with a little bit. Here, like they're all appearing outside of where I'm clicking, which I don't hugely love, but that is what it is. But yeah, we can start to create some nice little rocky features along our coast. Let's take it off brush tool and we'll just sort of fill in some of these little gaps. Again, this takes a lot of clicking, but you'll get the picture. That is what we need to do. If we just smooth this surface off now, and I really, really, really wish there was an undo. That is not what I intended at all. So yeah, let's actually click on smooth now and we'll just smooth out some of this very rough edge here. I can see those rocks have now come in underwater, which just makes it look that extra bit nicer, I think. Yeah, quite enjoying that. But I think we will actually turn this into a little bit of a nicer area by adding a path flowing through it. So let's just make sure we're not super connected up into that road if we want to amend any networks or zones that's going to cause us trouble later on. We can just bring a path very casually down here and along this little bit of coastline. So we'll just sort of follow this road for a bit and then I think we will divert it and bring it up to the bank here. We've got a little bit of raised area there, which I don't mind actually. I'm not too opposed to that. And we do also, of course, want to create a connection in here too. That's a little bit close to the road because it's creating a crossing. We'll just come like that. And with Tree Controller, we can, of course, now come in and actually put in our fully grown trees and know what this is going to look like in the long run. So yeah, quite pleased with this. I think we will add in a few little benches along here too. Unfortunately, they are still non-functional in this game, which is slightly frustrating, but hopefully that changes one day. That would be my dream aspiration for this, to have actual working functional props which mean something in your city. I have placed quite a few alders, so let's also place in a couple of those just so we've got a little bit of colour variation along here. Some of those autumnal trees are really nice against the evergreens in particular. So we do also have boulders within Find It as well, which does give us a slightly larger rock size, so we can go for boulder random here and start adding in a few more of those in amongst our extra little tiny rocks that we've got here. But again, this is really the largest that they get, so this is it in terms of rock detailing, and it might start to look a little bit random. So let's come back through and really flesh this out with a bunch more rocks just to help it make it look a little bit more natural, because we want this sort of nice nature walk river front, I think, behind this hotel here. And then let's of course come in and finish it off with a few little benches like I mentioned, which would absolutely be appropriate for this. I'm realising because we've got Anarchy on, we've actually got some small rocks sitting on our path. So I do need, it's always like trees in the road, isn't it? Rocks on the path. Maybe that's the new thing for Cities 2, so I do need to come in and delete those out, which we will of course do just to tidy this up. Yeah, a few little benches dotted along this pathway I think would be a nice touch here. Okay, so I think I'm going to finish up this episode by jumping into a time lapse just to finish off these couple of blocks over here by the waterfront and make sure our whole little waterfront stretch here is looking really nice and detailed and much more realistic than these awkward green spaces that we get in the vanilla game. here we go, we got our first bit of modded Cities Skylines II into our city, and I have just tidied up this little waterfront here a bit, added in a few more boulders and bushes and things like that. This is actually a really nice little walk now, with the benches, and it feels just so much more alive with the rocks, like just let alone anything else. Like, rocks was one of the first things I put in the feedback for when I first had access to this game. I was like, we need rocks. Undergrowth as well, but undergrowth is still missing, but there we go. But yeah, really like how this little park has turned out, particularly with the car park sitting on top of it up here next to the hotel. Just come in and lined it with a few bushes because we can now easily. I actually got rid of the fence around here as well because it was a bit too much. I actually prefer the sort of open grass entrance into our grand hotel at the back here. So yeah, quite enjoying that. Now, what else have we done? We've it doesn't feel like much, it's only a couple of blocks, but adding things like trees onto random places in the pavement just makes the world of difference as opposed to adding them to the side of the roads, which of course we could do. But then they come up in a uniform pattern, maybe not in the spacing that you'd want, maybe not in appropriate places in front of buildings, things like that. So just adding them in on the pavement, world of difference, world of difference. We've also added in a few more benches to flesh this out, done lots of surface really. That's the main work I think around these downtown buildings, particularly on our awkward non-uniform grid. Things like this little fountain plaza on the corner, very cute indeed. Now probably my favourite thing actually is this little construction area here. Now the fence is slightly falling down at the back, but I kind of think that adds to a little bit of realism maybe. But yeah, just a shed, a few trash props, a couple of bins, a few piles, which aren't sitting perfectly on the ground, of course, because it's not completely flat. And this crane just makes this really awkward space actually feel alive and realistic. Like, loving this little construction site. Yeah, it's getting me back to CS1 vibes for sure with this. We did add a little tiny car park into the back here as well, just surrounded by some bushes. Little entranceway down the side of this apartment block here, which just fits in quite nicely. Like, these parking roads really are an absolute game changer for me. We've got a tiny bit of access into the side of this unit as well there, just works nicely. Added in a very tiny little street food market over here, which is kind of ruined by the slope. Again, like if I was to come in and start a new city, I would do this very differently indeed. In fact, like doing this now and filling this in, I am wondering if we would be better to just start a new modded city from fresh and have all of these available details and be able to plan according to what we can actually do in the game with some mods right from the start. You have to let me know what you think about that in the comments, or if you are desperate for me to continue on in Few Orleans. But yeah, I really like this little street food market on the corner here with the tiling decal in here, the landscaping surface, whatever we want to call it. Little burger stand on the corner reminds me a little bit of Grand Theft Auto, won't lie. And then yeah, just lots of surface painter work in here, filling in all of these gaps, a few more little props out the back of this commercial unit here, another car park squeezed in with some pathways connecting the roads and some nice tree lines as well. You can actually, as well with the bulldozer, delete surfaces of certain buildings. So like if we come to here, we can have a look. If we've got surfaces selected, I can actually delete out certain bits of the tiles. So if we didn't want this grass here, for example, I could delete that out. I'm not going to do it there because I don't want to completely ruin that parking block. I'm trying to think if there's another example we could use here. We've got another asset with a green strip on it. Well, yeah, even for here, for example, if we wanted to get rid of this manicured lawn, just bulldoze that and we get the normal grass texture, which looks quite nice. So that bulldozer extra to Anarchy, fantastic mod there. But there we go. So we just done a really small area and just introduced those mods into Few Orleans, looking at the type of possibilities of what we could do around industrial areas in particular with all of those piles. Gets me really quite excited. But yeah, really enjoying how this waterfront looks now as well, with a little bit more asset selection in terms of the assets that we're putting in, particularly up this main street, of course, with the car park that we did previously. Just looks a lot better being able to select some of those assets in. And this level 5 building, absolutely no problem at all. They're happy, they're comfortable, we're all good there. So just plopping in a level 5 building doesn't really seem to have any effect on the game. As we know, the simulation is pretty rubbish. But I don't really care about that. I like the sort of smaller aspects, like being able to create a lovely little realistic style nature front river park like this. So for today, that is going to be it. But if you have enjoyed the video, likes, comments and shares are greatly appreciated. And like I said, please do let me know how you'd like to proceed. Do we start afresh with mods? Or do we continue trying to shape another county on this absolutely mental crazy terrain that is this map? Let me know what you think in the comments below, but that is all from me for now. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you again next time. Bye bye!